So a short reading from Nectar of Devotion. Chapter entitled Expressions of Love for Krishna. This is called Intoxication. When one becomes arrogant with false prestige due to drinking intoxicants or being too lustful, interesting that it says that one can become arrogant with false prestige due to drinking intoxication or being too lustful. The voice becomes faulty, the eyes become swollen, and there are symptoms of redness on the body. There's a statement in the Lalita Madhava that Lord Baladev, intoxicated from drinking excessive quantities of honey, at once began to address the ants. "O you king of the ants, why are you hiding yourselves in these holes?" At the same time, he also addressed the king of heaven. "O King Indra, you plaything of Sachi," that's referring to Indra's wife. "Why are you laughing? I am now prepared to smash the whole universe, and I know that Krishna will not be angry with me." Then he addressed Krishna. "My dear Krishna, tell me immediately why the whole world is trembling and why the moon has become elongated." So this is Lord Balaam in an intoxicated state. "And O you members of the Yadu dynasty, why are you laughing at me? Please give me back my liquors made of honey from the Kadamba flower." Srila Rupa Goswami prays that Lord Balaam will be pleased with all of us while he is thus talking just like an intoxicated person. Shri Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu Ki Jai. Just got another 7 books to go through before I get to Bhagavatam. So I don't know if there's a particular spot here, but okay, well, repetition is the mother of learning. Out of compassion, the Lord tries to liberate the fallen souls. Gajendra prayed, "Since an animal such as I has surrendered unto you who are supremely liberated, certainly you will release me from this dangerous position. Indeed, being extremely merciful, you incessantly try to deliver me. Only Krishna can deliver us from this material existence. Indeed, he is always trying to deliver us. He's within our hearts and is not at all inattentive. His only aim is to deliver us from material life." So just in case you're thinking he's got some other purpose, maybe he's trying to make life difficult for you or something. His only aim is to deliver us from material existence. It is not that he becomes attentive to us only when we offer prayers to him. Even before we offer our prayers, he incessantly tries to deliver us. He is never lazy in regard to our deliverance. It is the causeless mercy of the Supreme Lord that he always tries to bring us back home, back to Godhead. God is liberated and he tries to make us liberated. But although he is constantly trying, we refuse to accept his instructions. Nonetheless, he has not become angry. Therefore, he is described here as Buri Karunaya, unlimitedly merciful in delivering us from this miserable material condition of life and taking us back home, back to Godhead. Bhagavatam 8.3.17. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 8, Chapter 5, entitled The Demigods Appeal to the Lord. Text 33. Ambas tu yad hareta udara viryam. Ambas tu yad reta udara viryam. Siddhanti Jivanti Uta Vardhamana. Siddhanti Jivantyutta Vardhamana. Loka Yato Takila Loka Pala Loka Yato Takila Lokapala Prasidatam Na Sa Maha Vibhuti Prasidatam Na Sa Maha Vibhuti Ambastu Yadrita Udara Viryam Siddhanti Jivantyuta Vardhamana Lokayato Takila Lokapala Prasidatam Nasa Mahavibhuti Ambastu Yadrita Udara Viryam Siddhanti Jivantyuta Vardhamana. So see when there's a Y at the end of a word and there's a vowel after it, you speak it like it's one long word. So it goes Jivantyuta. Lokayato Takila Lokapala Prasidatam Nasa Mahavibhuti Ambastu Yadreta Udara Viryam Siddhanti Jivantyuta Vardhamana Lokayato Takila Lokapala Prasidatam Nasa Mahavibhuti. Chant. Ambastu Yadreta Udara Viryam Siddhanti Jivantyuta Vardhamana Lokayato Takila Lokapala Prasidatam Nasa Mahavibhuti Amba, the masses of water seen on this planet or on others. 2. But Yadreta, his semen. Udara Viryam, so powerful. Siddhanti, are generated. Jivanti, live. Uta, indeed. Vardhamana, flourish. Loka, all the three worlds. Yata, from which. Ata, also. Akila Lokapala, all the demigods throughout the universe. Pasidatam, may be pleased. Na, upon us. Saha, he. Mahavibhuti, a person with unlimited potency. Translation: the entire cosmic manifestation has emerged from water, and it is because of water that all living entities endure. live and develop. This water is nothing but the semen of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, may the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who has such great potency, be pleased with us. Please repeat. The entire cosmic manifestation has emerged from water, and it is because of water that all living entities endure, live, and develop. This water is nothing but the semen of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, may the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who has such great potency, be pleased with us. Srila Prabhupada's purport. Despite the theories of so-called scientists, the vast quantities of water on this planet and on other planets are not created by a mixture of hydrogen and oxygen. Rather, the water is something explained to be perspiration and sometimes the semen of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It is from water that all living entities emerge, and because of water they live and grow. If there was no water, all life would cease. Water is the source of life for everyone. Therefore, by the grace of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, we have so much water all over the world. Om Agyanatimarandasya Gyananjanaslakaya Chakramilitamyana Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Bhakam Karoti Vachalam Bhangam Lagayate Grimnyat Kripatamam Vande Shri Janitaranam Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare. The entire cosmic manifestation has emerged from water, and it is because of water that all living entities endure, live, and develop. This water is nothing but the semen of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, may the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who has such great potency, be pleased with us. It's interesting that by hypothesis, the scientists are also saying similar thing, that life came from the oceans. But it's a bit kind of comical the way they come up with it. They say, okay, there was a fish swimming in the sea, and it thought, oh, I wonder what it'd be like to be out there, and it decided to develop some legs and arms and crawl out, and then it became a bear. So, okay, even if that was true, it's like, how did it become a bear? Just because it wants to? You know, it doesn't quite work like that. And then they say, well, it takes a long, long time. Yeah, so in other words, we can't find it out. You know, the evidence can't be found because it takes so long, and you can't find all the links there to show how a fish becomes a bear. You can't find the missing link to say how an ape becomes a human, but we're just going to find it. You know, trust us, we'll find it. Trust us. When someone says, trust me, you generally think, if you have to say that, there's something not right. Of course, if a devotee requires us to follow something which is within Guru Sadhu and Shastra and says, you know, trust me, then he means trust in this. So these, the scientists may be able to determine certain external symptoms of life, but they cannot see, like this point here, that the water is actually the source of life for everybody. So if you take water away, of course, air is required as well, but some living entities, they live without breathing air. Krishna in Bhagavad Gita says, I am the taste and water. So just like your dear friend, Jayananda Prabhu's in the hospital and he can't drink anything, and he's in a very much suffering condition because his mouth is so dry. And if you can imagine, if you put something dry in a dry mouth, you're not going to taste it. It's going to be quite uncomfortable. So even the water which was within our mouth, it helps us to taste. It carries the taste. If you read Srimad Bhagavatam, second canto, it's explained, just like the other day we were talking about, how the subtle manifests into the gross in terms of the creation, and how all the different elements go from the more subtle to the gross, It's very scientific. And even this body is considered to be, 85% or 80% water or something like that. So it's such an important thing in our life. We have to drink water. Sometimes we get overly tired or headache or dull because we're just not drinking enough water. In Scotland they have a word which means the water of life, whiskey, uskavia. It means water of life. Of course, we don't think whiskey is the water of life. We're not propagating that in the Bhagavatam class. It's probably more like the water of death. Those who are caught up in alcoholism, then it's not considered to be very life-sustaining, auspicious thing. They have a name for it. In Scotland, especially in the islands, they call it the demon drink. In other places, they call it other names which are kind of cautionary, like fire water, things like that. But we see that Lord Vishnu, he's lying on a causal ocean, and from that is coming so many different universes. And then in each universe there's a Garbadak ocean. And from that, so many planets are coming, and living entities are given shelter. Even though the living entities are turning from Krishna, then he's still giving them some shelter, and he's giving them the rules. Okay, you're in the present house of the material world now, that's what you wanted. Are you happy? No? Okay, this is how you come back to me. If you want to stay here for a while longer, then you can be somewhat happy in your illusion, but these are the rules. And if you don't follow these rules, then your happiness is going to decrease and decrease. And the more you try to act independently, the more unhappy you'll become. It's just like if one breaks the law, they can end up in prison. And if while in prison they create some problem, they may get put into solitary confinement. And then if they create more trouble, then they may get put in a straitjacket. Or they may get some kind of, what do you call it? Something that makes them dull and slow, unable to act.
Chemical kosh.
Chemical kosh, but yeah, just the technical terms. Something, anyway, whatever it is, something that kind of dumbs you down. So in other words, when we keep breaking the laws, then our freedom is restricted more and more and more. And if while our restricted freedom in that situation we continue to break, then we even lose more freedom. So this is what it's like for the spirit soul. We get human form of life, and if we misuse it, then we may end up in the body of a worm, which is like being in a straitjacket, isn't it? You're just rolling about the floor, just trying to subsist through your mouth. We may get so much restriction. If we don't use it, if we abuse it, then we lose it. So this human form of life, we have to be careful not to abuse it. It's such a great gift. We hear it so many times that we practically switch off when we hear that. But something like gratitude is something which we have to work on, because without that gratitude, we will not value the opportunity we have for service. So considering how many living entities are on this one little planet, the human species of life are a fraction of those living entities. Of course, in our pride, we think that we are most important and no other species is of any value. The demonic mentality just uses other species for whatever purpose they want. It's so demonic. Sometimes they're just another living entity just seen as a source of protein. They don't see any value in them other than just how they can exploit for themselves. And they even make up philosophies to justify it. But despite all these millions of living entities, and we have a human form of life, very, very few of these living entities who have the human form of life get the opportunity to serve Krishna, to serve the person who is the source of all life. the cause of all causes. So we have this opportunity and we have to maintain an appreciation for that. That takes some effort. Sometimes we can look back and see where did I come from and where I am now. We never thought we could give up. Just like we were reading earlier on, that Krishna is always the well-wisher of the living entities. He's always, even when we're not praying, he's still trying to work for our good. And that means whenever there's a slight opportunity that we turn back to him, he makes all facilities for that. He's just always ready, waiting to cultivate whatever interest we may have in turning back to him. So this is Krishna's endless mercy, Krishna's endless love. And on the path, sometimes there may be some thorns. Like Prabhupada said, that even on the royal road, sometimes an accident may happen. Especially if you chant with a bead bag in our hand while we're driving. So we shouldn't be doing that. So even maybe on the best road, may have a great vehicle, and even we may be a safe driver, but if someone else, or there's a pothole, you know how many, I was just hearing recently that there's a certain amount of deaths within the last year simply because of the potholes in this country. It's ridiculous. And there's one woman in particular, she was commenting how her husband was on the motorway in a motorcycle, hit a pothole, come off the bike, get killed. And it's not like a small number, it's not like 5 or 6 or 20, it's like a couple of hundred or something like that. So even on the so-called best roads, there can be an accident. There is always danger. So we're on this path of Bhakti Yoga, Krishna consciousness, and there is danger at every step. There's an opportunity at every moment to take shelter of Krishna or to become distracted by Maya. And the thing about Maya is that it's one of those things that when you give up something, then you have the choice to take it or not. Like say you give up smoking, then you have the choice to smoke or not to smoke. But someone who's smoking all the time, they don't really have the choice. They have to do it because it's such a high demand of their system. They have to surrender to it. So the devotees there, when people, sometimes you meet people on the street and they say, oh, the devotees are brainwashed, you know, you've got no independence, you're trapped or whatever they try to say. And say, no, you're brainwashed because you're seeing advertisements for these different products and you're just thinking I have to go and get them. So therefore I better get a job, make lots of money so I can buy that new curvy washing machine. The washing machine I've got just now is white, black's the fashion, chuck that out, get a new one. And then they've planned obsolescence so that things only last for so long and then they can keep selling you the same things which should be built for a lifetime. Back in the I think it was the turn of the 19th and 20th century, they had already made modern conveniences, particularly in America. America was always considered to be at least 10 years. If something comes out in Britain, it meant it was already out for 10 years in America because their technology was generally more advanced. So they were, in those days, when they were building modern conveniences, then the competition was to make better quality. So this is what they were trying to do. People were vying for the market in terms of producing the best quality. And then they came to the point where they realized the market was saturated. All the things which they had made, people weren't buying so much any longer because they were made so well. Just like we used to have a car in Britain called the Moggy Minor, or the Morris Minor. And they had to stop making them apparently because they were too good. And it was a real simple car. It was like a Volkswagen Beetle, only more ugly. And it was a cute little British favourite. And they would just run forever and ever because you could just keep repairing them. But they decided, when we can't sell them then, if they're not breaking down and you can't scrap them, then we can't sell any. So going back to the other point was that back in the turn of the 19th, 20th century, they understood this. If we keep on making things of high quality, then we'll have to go on a 3-day week. So either that or we start planning obsolescence into things, so which is what they did. They took that option to plan obsolescence. And because of this planned obsolescence, then there's so much heaps of junk. And Kali Yuga is mentioned, it's characterized by heaps of junk everywhere. And it's just the nature of Kali Yuga. That things are not built to last, therefore have to be discarded. And just like we were saying the other day, that India had this very simple, sustainable system. So they didn't need a big, complicated infrastructure to deal with so much toxic waste and things which were not biodegradable, etc. They had something which was working for thousands of years. It's very simple. But to catch up with the West, then they follow the West, but they don't have the same infrastructure. So therefore what happens is the waste doesn't get dealt with and it litters the place. But the philosophy of Ishopanishad is simple living, high thinking. And if we follow that philosophy, then that is actually what people are looking for, a sustainable way of life. But when you tell them sustainable way of life is, if you live in Glasgow, don't buy a car and work in Edinburgh. Don't buy a car, just stay and work in Glasgow. Oh, but I can get a tenner a week extra if I drive to Edinburgh and back. Okay, well, you're in Edinburgh and you're going to work in Glasgow, and you're both going like this every day. So why don't you stay there and you stay there? But everybody wants such independence. They just want to run around all over the place having a so-called freedom. And are people brave enough to perform some austerities for the sake of the planet? A lot of finger pointing goes on. But in terms of personal sacrifice, sometimes you'll see people coming to some eco demonstration. How did they get there? Did they walk? And did they walk? What were their shoes made of? So living in the world, there's no material solution for the material problems. The only solution is a spiritual solution, which includes the material solution. That's mentioned in the Bhagavatam, Srimad Bhagavatam, and Bhagavad Gita, Ishopanishad, etc. That if we accept that Krishna is Aham Sarvasya Prabhavo, that he is the Lord of all spiritual material worlds, that he's a well-wishing friend of everyone, and he's the supreme proprietor. If we accept his authority, then we can live peacefully. And this is what he's saying in Bhagavad Gita, that be thou happy by this yogya. But in Kali Yuga, because the nature of Kali Yuga person is three things mainly. Lazy. I'm thinking of a particular verse. Hypocrisy is there, definitely. That is one of the qualities. Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And misguided. Lazy, misguided, unlucky, and above all, always disturbed. Above all. Do you ever get through a day without being disturbed? I know I don't. If I do, then I never noticed it. Because even in Kali Yuga, you're trying to be a devotee and still we're getting disturbed. What to speak of those who are not even trying to be a devotee, they're just always disturbed. Lazy, misguided, unlucky, and above all, always disturbed. So the laziness of the Kali Yuga living entity, it doesn't make life better for them. It's actually degrading them into the mode of ignorance, into lower species of life. Sometimes people think it's okay just to live off of the taxpayers and not do any work. But they don't realize, if as a devotee, somehow you're being maintained by social security or something like that, then you can benefit those who are paying tax by doing devotional service. But if simply you're taking money and doing nothing and not using this human form of life, then you become indebted. So Prabhupada says that one should not, there's three things we must extinguish immediately. Anyone remember anyone? Fire, disease, and debt. If there's a fire happens, like say someone's doing art during the class and the curtain catches fire and devotees get disturbed, and I say, it's okay, just wait till the end of class, we'll deal with it later. Nobody would even think about it. Immediately we'll stop whatever we're doing, get the extinguisher and put the fire out. Because we know that if you don't put fire out, it's going to get worse. And then disease, as soon as there's some symptom of disease, we want to put it out, we want to deal with it. And then debt as well. If we have debt, we're carrying it around in our mind all the time. There's some cultures which actually don't support the idea of debt. This is it's very kind of inauspicious. And it's a way of also controlling people, isn't it? Putting them in debt, then you're enslaving them. So, in this regard, then once you become free from all these things, at least that's a start of freedom. So this laziness in Kali Yuga is not our friend, it's not going to help us, it's going to make things more difficult for us because we become indebted if we're being maintained by others. We may think it's the homogeneous impersonal government that has no head, but actually the people who are giving the money to the government are other living entities who are working hard and paying taxes. So therefore, either we should work and earn an honest living. Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita that one cannot maintain one's physical body without work. Oh, and as devotees also, then Krishna consciousness, and in particular living at the temple, is not a cop-out. It's not an excuse for just, how is it prohibited? It's not a place simply for eating and sleeping. We have to be doing something. We're here to develop love of God, and Prabhupada says we have to demonstrate that by some action, by service. And so because we are in the diseased condition is that we don't have inclination for service, we have inclination for enjoyment. But if we can direct that inclination for enjoyment towards service, then we will enjoy as a byproduct. It just happens. As we're concerned, yeah, so I was thinking of one old man I met round the doors some years ago, and he just looked so happy, and I said, what's your secret? He said, the less I think about myself, the better. And I thought, well, that's our philosophy, that nothing is mine. We give ourselves so much importance, and this is a big insecurity, that we have to be so important. But actually there's a certain security just in accepting that we are insignificant and infinitesimal. Prabhupada gave a nice lesson to one disciple. One disciple went to Prabhupada and said, I'm your most fallen disciple. Prabhupada said, you're the most fallen nothing. No, he said, you're the most nothing, you're insignificant. So even sometimes in our false ego, we try to twist it around so that in our fallen condition, we can still get some attention. Like there was one lady who went to the doctor, she was suffering from 3 different things, and the doctor diagnosed it and said, oh, I can give you something for this, this, and this. And she said, well, I'm okay with that and that, but don't give me anything for this one. And I said, well, why not? She says, because that gets me sympathy from the rest of the family. So we're using our suffering, our misery to get some sympathy, to get some attention. So this is what the desperate situation of the material world is like. The funny thing is that if we give Krishna attention, if we serve Krishna, try to please Krishna, then Krishna is attracted by that. If we try to demand something from Krishna, we don't get it. But when we serve Krishna, try to please Krishna, and especially, especially we put ourselves into some difficulty to serve Krishna, then it comes to the point where Krishna is so attracted that he takes us back. That he's so attracted by his. It says that Krishna is all attractive, but he's attracted by pure devotional service. So if we keep on practicing, trying to be a pure devotee, following the footsteps of Mahajana Yena Gatasa Panta, following the footsteps of previous acharyas, then while we're undergoing so much difficulties in this difficult time of Kali Yuga with this material body, with all the things which are seem to be stacked against us, and we still try to serve Krishna despite all difficulty, then we become so attractive to Krishna that he can't bear to be without us, and he just says, okay, come back. And in the material world, you just see some devotee being sick or dropping dead or something like that, but this is Krishna taking the devotee back. So this lazy, unlucky. So unlucky, why are we unlucky?
Don't have a taste for service or for spiritual activities. So low in our intelligence, we can't understand the purpose of life. It just seems to be, being in this age at this time, it's like that. So it's most unfortunate.
Yeah, and sometimes the acharyas speak like this, or they sing some bhajans that Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he sings about, I've attained this rare human form of life, but knowingly drunk poison. So they're feeling this remorse for any type of material connection they had. And this is the situation, even sometimes we know something's bad, but we'll do it. This is knowingly drinking poison. If there's a bottle of poison and you think, and it says, it's got the skull and crossbones, it says poison on it, then you think, don't touch that. You keep it out of reach from children and stuff. But if you know it's poison, that's why they have symbols. They don't just write poison on it. So it's whatever language you're in, it's international understood. But if you know it's poison and you take it, then what can you expect? You can't expect it to be an elixir of life. It's not like some kind of a health drink or something. So similarly, even though, and Krishna is asked this question by Arjuna, what is it that impels us to act as if by force, even though we know better? It's lust only, which is born in contact with material mode of passion, which is later transformed into wrath. So we know that whole thing, Jayato Visham Prinsham Sangasteshu Bhajayate. So from attachment of the sense objects, so from contemplation of the sense objects comes attachment, and from attachment, lust develops. So when that attachment becomes unbreakable, then we're fixed on it. And then when the lust is either, we try to satisfy it, which is not satisfied because it's insatiable, then we become frustrated, which leads to anger, which leads to bewilderment of memory. The memory is lost, intelligence, we lose our intelligence, ability to discriminate, and we fall back into material pool. So ultimately that means, as long as we are afflicted by this eternal enemy known as lust, then we're perpetuating this material lifestyle, this material life of samsara. But the good news is, even though we may have lust in our heart, this is actually misdirected love of God. So sometimes someone asks a question, but the answer to the question is in the question itself. So just like this problem of lust, the eternal enemy of the living entity, the hint is already in there that this is misdirected towards the material energy. It's love of God, but it's directed towards the Lord's external energy. So if we start directing that in a practical way towards living service of the Lord, Then in due course of time, we can conquer over that enemy by the grace of spiritual master, the Lord, and the devotees. And so unlucky also because in Kali Yuga, despite the fact that there seems to be a growing population of humans, then many of them so unlucky that the activities they're doing will cause them to take birth in animal species many, many times. Within the course of a day, some of the things that people do, it's enough to keep them going for a few lifetimes, what to speak of a lifetime full of sinful activities. But Prabhupada said if we give them one book, they're benefited. If they read the book, the books are like time bombs. We give a book out, and it may not be the person who reads it, who receives it, who reads it. It may sit on a shelf for 20 years, and then their kids may read it and become a devotee. And these, just like we were discussing recently at the European Leaders Meeting, their question was, is it still relevant to have printed books in this age because of the digital age? And the answer was yes, because of different reasons. So when they had the first printing press, which was about 500 years ago, then they printed Bibles, and there's still some of those copies around. And Prabhupada's early Bhagavatams, they were over 60 years ago when they were printed, and there's still some of them around. And then you can always rebind the book, and it'll last another 60 years. Whereas the technology, which was around 20, 30 years ago, we don't use that technology, and what technology we have now, we won't be using that, soon there'll be something else. So therefore there will always be a need for books. So if we can just get these books into the hands of the people, get them out there, and Krishna is within the heart of all the living entities, Brahmanda Koni Bhagavana Jeev Guru Krishna Prasadi Pai, Bhakti Lata Bij. Within living entities wandering within the universe, all over this different species and different planets, higher, lower, middle planetary systems, we've seen it all. We may have forgotten it, but Krishna hasn't forgotten it. And he's just sitting waiting there and directing the living entities according to their desire. So when the books are out there, the Lord will direct a living entity who's sincere, and they will get a book, whether it be a shrink-wrap book in a canal out fishing, a BTG blowing against your leg when you're ready to walk off a cliff because you've had enough of life, or you find a book in a charity shop, or you move into a new home and there's an SSR sitting there waiting to be read. And these are all true accounts of people who have came across Krishna's books and become devotees. So our little part is simply just put ourselves in the position of either going out and serving the mission by getting the books into their hands, into their homes, or doing some service back here, which is going to cultivate those living entities who read the books, who come to visit the temple. Then we're here to give them darshan, prasadam, more books, encourage them to chant. And so that's simply what we're all about. We'll just stop there. Any questions or comments? Yes, sir.
You mentioned something about Kali Yuga earlier, and I was going to ask for the reference for it.
Mentioned something about what, sorry?
Kali Yuga.
Kali Yuga.
It was earlier on in the class. It was something.
Yeah, excuse me. So, thank you. You mentioned something about Kali Yuga towards the beginning of the class, which I hadn't heard before, and I was just wondering if you could give me a reference.
Which one?
Oh, I'm sorry, my brain's kind of a blank. It stuck out for me. You were
About
giving
Kali
some
Yuga?
descriptions of
The
Kali
verse
Yuga.
of the lazy, misguided, and unlucky, above always disturbed. That one?
Before that.
Can't remember. Does anybody remember? Yeah. If you can remember what it is, I might be able to tell you the reference, but sorry, I can't remember. Kali Yuga, we also got a short memory in Kali Yuga.
If you watch the recording,
Yeah.
if you look at the recording.
So there's if you want to get a description of Kali Yuga, how it progresses, you can find it in the 12th canto? 12th canto. And some clear descriptions of how things develop, and not for the better. And we can take this as an impetus, at least if we don't want to suffer, then get out of here. As Kali Yuga gets worse, then it becomes more dangerous. Life is shorter, stature is shorter, and it's things like there's always clouds in the sky, but it never rains. In Scotland, there's always cloud in the sky and it always rains, so at least we've got that. But at the moment, we are in this golden age. Since Lord Chaitanya came, within the Kali Yuga, this golden age of 10,000 years, it said in Prabhupada's books, are considered to be the reference of God's laws for the next 10,000 years. And in due course of time, then even the devotees, they will not be appreciated, and it says that they get hunted for sport. So it's not going to be easy to be a devotee sticking around. Like sometimes people say, oh, I'll just do a bit now and then next life will catch up. Maybe you've been saying that for 10,000 lives and we're going round in circles. How do we know we're not coming up against the same hurdle and shying away from it again and again? So what's really important is to have a spiritual master who will guide us and push us because he knows what's best for us. We might not want to push ourselves because of the Kali Yuga influence, but the spiritual master, he's above the modes and he's pushing us to get free from these lower modes. And in this way, we've got a good chance of becoming Krishna conscious. Okay, we'll just stop there. Just going to go around the key. Prabhupada key. Srimad Bhagavatam the key. The Tagore Premanandi. Go right back to in the key.